Okay, so recording has started. Today the goal is to cover authentication. The first part of authentication. Because remember, authentication is a two-part process. There's the registration and there's the logging in. So we're going to start with the registration. Registration is not really that complicated, and we won't be using the project that we used yesterday. Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, Shared Device Manager. We're using the Charity Minds one. To set up the authentication in such a way that a user can create an account on Charity Minds on their own. So from what I'm seeing, this is uh, what we had worked on. Saying it has some files, the client has some of the components that we need, but they're not functional because we're not connected. This functionality as well, the functionality, especially for the authentication, doesn't exist in the uh, it doesn't exist in the it doesn't exist um, in the in the server yet. We have the routes, we have the controllers, but the actual functionality is not there. So I'll clone the project. Then move into it, then open the client. So later on, we will come to the client and get to connect the two. If time allows us, we're actually going to do it in this session. So I set up the registration logic on the back end, and then I add the the relevant um, logic on the client side. So let me install the dependencies, open the server, and do the same thing. So again, I always like to mention this, that NI is an alias uh, for npm install. So it runs in the background, or rather, it is an alias for the other command, for the npm install command. So in case you do not have the alias in this part, you will run the npm install, because this is a project that I've cloned, and the project doesn't have node modules because you always ignore the node modules. Uh, but as long as an npm based project has the package.json file, that's all that's needed. This package.json file will be read by npm, and npm will fetch the necessary packages from the package manager from their repositories. Uh, so we have the client and the server. Right now, we're going to start from the server, but uh, I'll open everything on on Visual Studio Code, so both the client and the server. So for the server, let me just confirm what we have and what we don't have. So you can say trans node one. We should have the routes set up. So v1 router. So the v1 router has auth. The auth router has register and login. That is what we are interested in. The register, the Z controller, that's already been set up. So that's good. Uh, So we will first of all just going to focus on this because of time, and then tomorrow we'll focus on the login. So it is on the login whereby you find the application of the JWT and the cookies. Remember, I asked you to look into JWTs and cookies. I hope you've done that. You just read up on them. You know what they are, even though you don't fully understand. That is why this session exists, so that you can get to fully understand them. So uh, let me see what middle we had here. Actually, I do not have any middle. That's okay. Constants, none. Uh, not okay. So this was just a bare bones Express app. that was set up. Now, right now, it cannot even receive any data because remember, there's a middleware that is required in order for you to receive the data in the request body, and that is the JSON uh, middleware. So I'm just going to bring that in from Express. We're going to need it. Then uh, what do I do next for this setup? I just want to really focus on just the register. So I don't think there's anything else that we need to do. I will run the application just to see that it's working. Uh, so NRD, how is running? If we had, oh, we actually do not have a database connection. Okay, so we are not set up now. We should have already set up the database connection. Damn it. Maybe I lost those. Those are some of the files I lost with NAD uh, when my SSD crashed. So let me quickly just create it. Uh, so this is config.js in the DB. That means I don't have models. Uh, I'll have models. I know I want user model.js. I'll want an aggregator index.js. I know we're only going to be focused on the user. We're going to add the configuration for connecting to the database. Do we have Mongoose? We do not have Mongoose. So we're going to install Mongoose. Ni Mongoose. So as it does that, I'm going to create the function for connecting to the DB. It will be an arrow function. Doesn't really receive any parameters. It doesn't have any parameters. So what this will do is going to be async because we want to await the connection. So we'll try add a try catch. If there's an error, we want to exit this process with a code of let's say to exit the failure code. It's code 1. But we will log the error in order just to see it. So I'll say that this is Mongoose connection error. So we log that error, and then in the try, what we're going to be trying is the connection. Connect from Mongoose. Mongoose is not picking it up. Okay. I'm going to do is VS Code hasn't picked it up yet. I will import connect from Mongoose. So once we've imported connect from Mongoose, this should take in the URL. So that's going to be in our environment variables, process.env, and I'll call that mongo underscore URI. So then that means we need to set up the env. So that's dot env. Then first of all, you always want to have node env in there. So for node environment right now in development, then I'll add the mongoose mongo underscore URI. So we have mongo URI. I'll open not Postman, but MongoDB Compass so that we can get that connection string. Hopefully this time it should give us a challenge to connect. Yeah, we had set it up somewhere because you can see I have all of this. This just means that we'd set up is logic. Because even the password is where had I set this up? I'm not sure. Because we already have a charity minds, but that's okay. Let me just quickly set it up afresh because it might take longer to, and I need to look for, I'll call this help so that we can differentiate it from what already existed. This Mongo URI. So once we have the config, we've exported this. We need to call it in the server.js. So we'll call it just up here, connectDB. Then we check whether the database connection actually works. It is crashed. Okay, that is because I do not have .env. So I need to install .env. Where's the server? So I .env. And then I configure .env. Okay, so this needs to be, let's have it at the very top, import .env slash config. That's how it's imported. And remember very well. So .env npm. We look at the documentation. Usage. Okay. It's the configure. There's the showing uh, the version of this that is ES6. But in case it doesn't work, we will see. I'm not sure that this is the syntax that we're going to see when the server runs. Let's look at what we're getting now. Okay, so server is running on port, so we do not have an error. That is a good sign. So after awaiting, we just want to log. Actually, the connect takes in running options. No, we're going to just log that database connection successful, because this line of code will not be executed in case this throws an error. So the only time that we'll see this console log is if this is resolved. So if it's not resolved and it throws an error, then that error will be caught here and the app will crash. Now we're looking at this. Yeah. So database connection successful. So what we're going to do is the model for user. This is going to set up a really bare bones model for users. Or we can copy, see this what we already had. No, actually, this is a lot. So we just have the first name, first name, last name, username, and then password, and maybe email. Maybe, okay, let's just set them all up. So this is what normally starts. What normally starts is the schema const user schema is equals to a new schema from Mongoose, and what we pass here are the fields, then the timestamps, always to be not time series but timestamps. This will be true. Then the values for user, we've said it's first name. This is string. Last name is also string. Username is also string. Password is also string. Phone number is a name. Email string is a name. Email font also string. Then so what we can do is we can make all of this required by turning this into an object required to then type and so first name, last name, email, phone, username, password. Anything else we need for the user? I don't think so. Well, we can leave out the date of birth right now. We can leave out the gender right now. The timestamps will be handled by that value that we have set. So I think we're good for those. So in other words, our user will never be created if these values are not passed. That is why we have this required. And this is also important for later on handling um, errors that are thrown by Mongoose. So there's a way that you can improve your application to handle errors that are thrown by Mongoose, so that if it's an error with the first name, then it will throw an error and you'll be able to send back to the client and inform the client that hey, the issue is in the first name. But for now, we're just going to make it work. Optimizations always come later. So user schema, then we create the model uh, from the schema equals model. I hope that's been imported. It's been imported. So the model gets a name, always in singular. Well, not always. It's a convention to have it in singular. And then the schema. So that's what we're going to have there. And then we can export the user. So remember how I told you that some of these things, you just know them. Like right now, I haven't really refined anyway, but that's because I've done this enough times that um, I don't really need to refer. So the more times that you write code, the more times that the sooner that you get a point whereby you can write it from memory. But you're never sure about your code until you test it. And the way that we're going to test this model is by importing it somewhere in our controllers. And that's going to happen inside the users controllers. So where you have get all users, let's just make this super, super simple. Uh, this will be an asynchronous function. I'll not be handling errors right now, or I can handle for the one. So we will try, and we have const users equals await user from DB models. So let's use the aggregator, uh, export order from user.js. Uh, so this user will now come from DB models, but since uh, we are using, remember we set the type to module, we have to specify the extension, the file extension. Otherwise, this is going to throw an error. If you save this file as it is right now, our terminal will throw an error that we cannot import. Actually, this is because it's a directory import. Okay. So let's add the index. So without the extension, so that we see the error that it was actually looking for. Yeah, cannot find module. Is imported from that. So we have to add there an extension that will get rid of our error. So once you have that user, okay, so far no errors, that is good. But the only way that we'll know for sure that there's no errors, that our model works fine, is by using it. So we're going to have user.find, because this is responsible for just returning um, or returning the the data for user for users that we have in our system. So success, this is going to be true. Data will be users. So we can test this on Postman just real quick. First, let me ensure that the routes are set up. Now users will get all users. Yeah, we have it there. Get all users, sync, await, cut, response to JSON here. Yeah, I think it's testable. Hey. Yeah. I'm going to call this request, and folder. This new folder is going to be RT minds filled. Then I'll request. This is a GET request, yes, to HTTP API v1 users. Is it running on port 3005? That is very likely the port, because I almost always use 3005 or my servers. This is users, and we can say that and it, and yep, the no errors. Our server doesn't, okay, it doesn't crash, but we have this going on. This happens because another that is the place, but let's see, and it, yeah, okay, so we return um, the response to JSON. Okay, so okay, so our model works. Now it's returning an empty array because we do not have any users yet. So that is where now the registration comes in. So we're going to add, should have just duplicated this because it already has, just change this to post, because that is the route for our creation. Now, it is not the route for creation of a users. It will be all then slash register. So that is the endpoint for our registration. So the registration endpoint is now that is going to be responsible for the creation of users. And then the users endpoint is going to be responsible for all other operations that have to do with users, except login. So login will also be handled by the old endpoint. So let me just confirm what I have. Yeah, I had confirmed the register. So I can test it right now just to see that it returns something, So you have it here, register route 2. I don't know why it's route 2 and not 1. Do you have a register route 1? No, we do not. No, I don't know. I'd set it as, maybe I was just something at the time that was right in this code. Okay, so this is where we're going to set up the logic for the creation of a user, because that is what the registration process is. And for that, it is going to be something very similar to what we've done to what we did yesterday with the update. So we have to get the data from, first of all, we need to mark this as a sync always. Anytime that you're working with models, models, the methods that the Mongoose models give you will almost always, actually, I don't know of any method that is not asynchronous. There could be, but I'm not sure. Um, just a second, I plug in my phone. Okay. We have the register endpoint. This register endpoint is going to be receiving, see the data that we set up in the model for the user. This is the data that needs to be sent along with the request so that the registration can happen. Now, the registration, the only thing that is really different from how we did the other, remember in the other project, we did the creation of, was it employees? Yeah, we had the employees and also the creation of a station. So the registration process is, it's just that. You're adding data into the database, so you use the same Mongoose model, but the difference is that the registration process has the password. Now, the password, this is the most crucial bit about it. Or the other thing that we need to ensure is that things like the email, the phone number, and the username are unique. So we need to add that constraint at Mongoose level. So we'll say that this is unique. So that way now, nobody will be able to create two accounts with the same email, two accounts with the same phone, or two accounts with the same username. Now, validation needs to happen before the the constraint of Mongoose kicks in. You'd want to have checked whether the email or the phone or, and actually, I don't know whether that makes sense because you'll still be reaching into the database. So I think the best thing would be to need to set up the error handling for Goose so that if the error that is thrown it's because of this unique constraint, you're able to inform the user that hey, you cannot use those details to create an account. So back to registration. So for close this files. Users, the users, index, auth register, auth controllers, perfect. So here, this is where the bulk of the work is going to be. And the first step is to extract the password. Now, I'm only going to extract the password because it is what we need to do something with. And what we need to do with this password is to encrypt it. Remember when I was looking at this data earlier, we saw that this already had the encryption because the password, this is most certainly not somebody's password. Nobody entered this into that password field as their password. So this is an encrypted password. Now, you never want to store your passwords in plain text because if this data is ever leaked, uh, you do not want people's passwords to be amongst the data that is leaked. So it's a security thing, okay, to protect the data um, of your of your users. Some people repeat passwords everywhere. They use the exact same password, and so if somebody has created an account on 10 different platforms with the same password, and then one of those platforms leaks their password, then that just means it exposes that password the other 9 platforms that they are on, um, their access gets exposed. So always store your passwords in, not in plain text. Always store them in encrypted form. So that is the major thing about the registration process. Now, the registration process can also be coupled with the login process. So there are some systems whereby the moment you register, you don't need to then log in. The actual registration logs you in. Now, I'll not advise that, but don't quote me on that. It depends on the system, right? In most cases, what you find happening is that to validate that the data that a user has given you on your system is true, you don't to have some form of one-time password or um, and then you're sending them a link to their either their email or their phone number just to verify that the details that they have given, first of all, the correct details and that they own the email or the phone number that they are trying to create an account with. And that is something that is one of the things that you can do, that you can add to the registration flow. And so you do not want to log this person in until they have verified their details. They have verified their email, they have verified their phone. But that again depends on the system. Not all systems require you to verify your email or to verify your phone number. And so you can sign up with any email, whether it's real or not. You can sign up with any phone number, whether it's real or not. But if you're building a system, let's say you're building a financial system, I mean, financial systems, you never want to just give um, you to have the leeway to just use to create um, accounts with dummy data. You never want that. So you always want to verify that what or rather the details that this user has given are true, they work, and they're theirs. Because if let's say I guess an email address and it's not mine, or I know a friend's email address and I want to create an account on your platform and I come and I feed it in, and the email is not mine, but your platform requires me to verify that email, then I'll not have access to that email. So I'll not be able to verify that email. So I shouldn't be able to log in. So that is why we're building this by decoupling or rather separating the registration flow from the login flow. Login to be on its own, registration to be on its own. So for the registration, as we've said, we're just going to be picking the password. And so I'm going to uh, take or rather extract the password from request.body, because remember, it is the body that is going to contain the data that is sent by the client. Which data? The one that is right uh, right here. So I don't know whether, oh, let me see. I just copied this. They're very similar. Copy that. Where am I? I'm on post. Here, paste it. So you're on first name, last name, username, email, phone, password. So that is okay. We'll remove the station. The station is not necessary for this. Uh, so this is the data that is going to be sent through the request inside the body. So we receive it. But as we mentioned, the only thing that we're going to be doing is, where is this? The only thing that we're going to be doing is hashing the password. So for the password hashing, there are multiple ways that you can do it. There's a package that is most common for that. Never try to do any cryptographic work on your own. There are people that have put in years of work into building libraries that do the cryptographic work in the best way possible. So don't try to come up with your own like hashing algorithm. So take advantage of what um, the people with the specialist knowledge of uh, cryptography have built. So we have two options. We have this big JS and you have this bcrypt. Now, for simplicity and so that we don't require build tools, because from my understanding, if I remember correct, this one requires some build tools, and depending on whether you have, I don't remember which tool exactly is required to build bcrypt for you to work, but bcrypt.js is just JavaScript, so it will just work. So this is the one that we're going to be using, and this is how to use it. So you install it, then you import it. Then if you want to hash, this is how you hash, and you have two options. You can hash synchronously or asynchronously. So we're just going to use this documentation uh, to hash our password. And then later on, when somebody's logging in, because this data is stored as a hash, you cannot do a direct comparison. You cannot take, when they'll be logging in, you can't take what they enter and then use the equality operator to check whether the password is correct, because the equality operator will fail, because what is in the database will be the hashed version of the password, and what the user will give in the login form will be the plain text version of the password. So even to compare later on when the user is logging in, we're going to need bcrypt. Okay. So, but this will come back to when we'll be setting up uh, the login flow. So instead of doing the generation of the sort and then hashing the sync, we can just do this directly. So just going to copy, but before I copy that, we need to install the package. Uh, so we come to the server. Now remember, we're working on the server, and so any package that we're installing right now needs to be in the working directory of the server. So this is ni b crypt js. Because that goes in, it's already done. We can import bcrypt. Then, so we have const hash password equals, we've seen from the documentation that to hash it, we just call the hash sync method on bcrypt. So we import bcrypt. It hasn't picked up yet. So bcrypt dot hash thing. Then we pass the password that has come from the user and then the salt, just like that. So you need to import this. No suggestions. Split manually. Import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. So now we have the hashed password. So what we do with it, remember, the reason why I've just extracted the password, because I want to pass the rest of the data just directly into our create method. So here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that record dot body dot password is hashed password. So this will override the value of the password inside the body to be now the value of the hashed password. So that after that, I can then come and say here that this is created, or let's say new user is equals to, so we await, because uh, I'm about to use Goose method. So user dot create, and what I want to create is the data in rec dot body. Now we already have some constraints in the model, and so if let's say the user didn't pass any um, uh, if the user didn't pass, let's say, the first name, if they didn't pass the last name, the constraint will fail. Like the creation of that user, because of these constraints, they will fail. If the user passes an email that already exists, the creation will fail. And so that failure will be, so this promise will not resolve. And so, well, actually, let me just wrap all of this in a try-catch so that we can handle the failure. I didn't want to set this up. Remember yesterday I mentioned that there's a better way to handle errors in your asynchronous errors in your projects without having to repeat all of these try catches. But that's for later. So for now, let's return res dot status. So the only thing that's likely to cause um, these issue, but you want to inspect the error and just know what exactly is the issue. But for now, we're going to be using a generic 400 error, and we're going to say that success is false, and the message. So anytime there's a success false, there will be a message. So let's just say something went wrong for now. But ideally, I will keep mentioning this. You would want to have proper error handling for your Mongoose errors, for the errors that are thrown by the Mongoose methods. So here, new user, if this goes through successfully, then it means this part will be executed. So your return response to JSON success true message, user registered successfully, and the data will be the user, or not the user, but new user. Actually, we don't really need to return the data because the client will not need this data. But let's do it right now for testing so that we can see that this new user contains um, the data that has been stored in our database so that we can compare the response, the data in the response to what we see in the database, and we see a match. So if this logic is correct, remember you can never really know whether your logic is correct until you test it. I think it is testable now. Let me first check the terminal and confirm there's no errors. There's no errors there. So I'm going to send this registration. So one of two things. Right now, my expectation is that this will go through successfully because I'm not missing a field. I know I do not have a repeat username because there's no user data in the database. So I'm going to send this, and we get a 200 response, and we see perfect right here. The password has been hashed. We have the ID of the user that has just been created. So everything has gone successfully, and we can compare now, or we can confirm that in the database. So right here, you see that Mary Watson value has come in. So that is the registration flow. With registration, it is just a normal um, adding data to the database, unless you're adding those functionalities that we discussed earlier, like the email verification, the phone number verification. And this is the first step of now the authentication flow, because you cannot log in if you're not registered. If your details do not exist in the database of a particular system, then there's no way that you're going to be able to log into that system. So the authentication flow starts from here, the registration. And one of the most important things, there are other important things, but one of the most important one is ensuring that your password is hashed. Now, there are multiple ways to go about this. Like for this password hashing, you can have what's called a pre-save hook in your model, but that's a Mongoose specific thing. It's a Mongoose specific feature whereby the logic for hashing a password is not set in your controller, and instead it is set in that pre-save hook. hooks are not that termed down pre-save hooks. They are they're different hooks, and these hooks are not the same as the hooks in React. They are a bit different, but the idea is that the hook, I think so just from the term hook, right? It is something of a certain functionality or something is happening and then you hook into it. So in React, hooks are normally functions that execute as the React components go through their life cycle, right? We hook onto that process. So here, if you have a pre-save hook, then it is going to hook it out into that process of saving data. In that, just before it saves data, it executes some functionality. You have the pre-save, you have the post-save, and I don't know if the hooks exist, but look them up. But this having the logic in the controller it is still fine, right? It is still something that you can do. Yes, so that is the registration. And so for what I've mentioned severally, the OTP verification, whereby you get in an email and you're sending an OTP email to or rather an OTP to the email of the person who has just registered. The different services that you can do that with. Now, the easiest way to get that going is by using an API service. So there's one that's really good, really efficient, and it's called Resend. They just give you a very straightforward API to need to use. So resend.com, it gives you its email for developers. Now they can get a bit pricey depending on what you're doing. So look at the pricing for this. Now they're built on top of what's called Amazon Simple Email Service. So it's one of the services that is offered by Amazon for emails, right? Simple email service. So if you're feeling a little ambitious, instead of using Recent, you can go straight into using Amazon Simple Email Service. But then that will require you to go through a bit of a heftier setup process. But it's something that as a developer, at some point you will have to do. At some point you will come across clients that already is using the Amazon ecosystem. And so they don't want to move out of it. They want to maintain everything within the Amazon ecosystem, including their emails. So you just have to set up the SES. It's actually much cheaper because remember, Resend, it is a service. They give you the API, they simplify your work, they manage the different email servers for deliverability so that your emails never land in the spam folders of your clients in such a way that you can be assured that once you send an OTP email, the client will receive it, or rather the user will receive it in their inbox. So Resend, uh, they behind the scenes they maintain like several email servers, and they make sure that those email servers are in good standing with the different like the Gmails, the Outlooks, all of this. They're not blacklisted, because if an email server is blacklisted, then sending emails from that server just means that those emails will either straight to spam folder, or they just don't get delivered depending on the service in question. So Resend is good for a start, but if you want to dive deeper, just go straight to Amazon SES. And that one will also do talk, or you can set up your own email server. Not recommended. I did that once. It worked. It worked, and it works. It's way cheaper than using. Let me not say it's way cheaper than using SES. It depends, but then you don't get like those limits. You see how Resend is giving you limits of how many emails you can send per, per month uh, based on the pricing tier. You set up your own email server as long as you just make sure it's never blacklisted. You're not spamming people's inboxes. Then that email server will never tell you, you've sent enough emails for today. So yeah, that's also an option that you can explore. Get a VPS somewhere with a good VPS company, not DigitalOcean. All di- it's like all DigitalOcean VPSs are normally blacklisted. If an IP address is coming from DigitalOcean, sending emails from DigitalOcean, the likelihood that it's going to be blacklisted is very high because DigitalOcean has they offer cheap servers. Anyway, you find cheap servers, then just know that these telemarketers have probably used them for their um, their their bulk marketing, and that bulk marketing, sending like thousands of emails per day to cold emails. That is what causes um, servers to be blacklisted, or IPs or domains, and what have you. So yeah, that that is it for registration. So we've said this is the first part of the process. You can see we've not touched on cookies, we've not touched on JWT. That is going to come now as the next thing. So the login flow. And because of time, so as we discussed, I was actually supposed to go up to 8, but then I'm gonna join late today. So that is where I've gone up to right now. So that 1 hour will cover it. Maybe just before I go, any questions or clarifications needed? So as always, this is going to be posted. I'm going to share this on my YouTube channel, and then you can review everything that we've done. I know at some point maybe I was moving a bit too fast, just so that I can complete it. But that's also because then it's being recorded, and you will have a lot has just crossed my mind that I may not have pressed the start record. Okay, I did start the recording. Yeah. Yeah. So the recording, I'm going to share it in your group. Then you can review it. You can review this before tomorrow's session and anytime that you want in future. So tomorrow we're going to be doing the login. Now this is where the authentication flow becomes a bit more difficult. Um, just make sure, please, if you've not touched on cookies, please read on them, because it's not going to make any sense if you join. Like if you join that session without having read what cookies are, you will get lost. Without knowing what JWTs are, you will get lost. Um, Even though you don't fully understand them, that's okay. But just know what those things are. You can use ChatGPT, tell it to explain to you what cookies are, tell it to explain to you what JWTs are. So JWTs are just one of the ways that we authenticate systems. So it's not the only way. So what I'm going to be teaching you is not it's not the gospel. It's not that this is how you should always um, build your systems. It's how I always build mine. So it works. But then there are other what are they called? No, I'm not. I'm looking for the technical term, like I don't remember the education. What uh, system authentication, not design. Uh, I have forgotten the term. Uh, BWT option or system authentication and alternatives. Let's see whether that is going to give me uh, and see there. Oh, what are these? Some of these things I have no idea. So sessions, yeah, that is another way. Oh, Bronco. What is Bronco? Really never heard it before. X Charter 20, what did that you know? Oh boy. This is what I always tell you guys, like been building systems for the longest time. I never heard of Bronco. And I'm not going to go out of my way to learn what this is because then I don't need it. But then like this just goes to show you that this this field, the learning never stops. There will always be something new um, for you to learn. I can't find the term actually. The I can't find specific the specific name. Um, yeah, but I'll come across it at some point. Right. Any other thing that I need to mention? No. So we have Spin Big Crypt, Spin.env. So tomorrow we'll just continue this project. So let me actually push all the changes that I have made. So this is the addition of those packages that we have added. Okay, let me add this. Mm, bigger database. I need to choose a model. Then we have uh, update server. That can just be update of .tnb ftdb. What else was there? Yeah, this one we do. Then auth. So in the auth, we've done the and I think the registration can come before uh, auth user registration. And I believe in the packages should have come before all of that. Uh, add necessary packages. Users get all users. Okay. I'm going to put this over to the repo. Then I'll, yeah, Share this new group. Okay, so you can use it for um, reviewing what we've done today. Remember, don't just copy and paste the code from my project to yours. Use it as a reference. Read the code, implement what you just read and understood into your own. Right. That does it for today's session. I will see you in tomorrow's. Hey, you guys. I have lost you. Okay. Here you are. This is John Lawrence and Ian. Thank you for sticking around. Talk to you tomorrow.